Okay, so today we are talking about why can't my baby roll from their back to their belly. Yesterday we talked about why a 5-month-old might not be able to roll from their belly to their back. So if you are looking for that video, definitely check the past live streams or the Learning to Roll playlist or the Tummy Time and Learning to Roll book playlist. But today we're talking about the opposite movement. So why wouldn't a baby be able to roll from their back to their belly? And what we're going to do is basically talk through the different concepts on what might be causing that difficulty. There's a bunch of things that could be going on with a baby and being the reason why they can't roll from their back to their belly. But we're also going to go through my new book, Tummy Time and Learning to Roll, a baby development book for ambitious parents and pediatric healthcare providers to help babies learn to roll independently and use it as a resource. I'm going to actually walk you through. So say you're a parent whose baby is not rolling from their back to their belly or is only rolling over one side. So maybe they're rolling their back to their belly over their left arm, but not their right arm. It is so important for babies to roll symmetrically. And so we want them to roll in both directions. And so if you are a parent and you are in that experience, or maybe you're a pediatric healthcare provider that is interested in learning more, I'm going to walk you through, okay, you're in this situation. How do you use this resource to help you solve that problem? And if you're ready to just dive in, the link is in the description as well as the pinned comment. If you have any questions during this live stream, make sure you drop them in the chat. And if you are catching the replay, make sure you drop those questions in the comment section. I'll make sure to answer them for you. So if your baby is not rolling from their back to their belly, just for context sake, babies roll from their back to their belly, typically between 4 to 6 months. If a baby is older than 6 months and they are not showing signs of rolling, that is the cutoff on when you want to get expert help. And in this case, expert help would be a pediatric physical therapist. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't also use this book in addition to having PT care for your kiddo, but you do want to make sure that you are on time and proactive about having someone look at your baby and kind of figure out maybe what are the specific instances that are kind of limiting their ability to move in that direction. So if you do buy the book and you're like, hey, why is this baby not rolling back to belly? Now, if you go through the book, you can read it like a normal book. You can go from beginning to end, or you can use it more as a workbook. So today we're going to use it more as a workbook. We're going to go through and say, hey, let's start at how babies roll from back to belly. So we're going to go to page 124. Well, let's start at 122, which is the start of rolling back to belly. Okay, so we're going to 122. And it's going to talk about kind of the building blocks of rolling back to belly and how babies do that. There's going to be a checklist that you can go through and say, hey, does my baby have all of these things that they need in order to be able to master this milestone in this way in both directions? So the biggest thing you want to know is, can the baby turn their head to either direction while lying on their back? Oftentimes, in order to go from their back to their belly, babies are motivated by something that they see. So either a toy is over there, a parent is over there, a puppy is over there, something catches their eye and they're like, I want that thing, or I want to get closer to that thing, or I want to be able to see that thing better. Oftentimes, babies can scan their environment pretty well when they're on their belly. So if they're on their back, that is a motivating factor. So they track the object by turning their head. If a baby can only go to a certain point, so they can't get their chin all the way over their shoulder, they can only get it kind of here, they may feel that restriction and give up trying to go fully in that direction. Oftentimes, limitations in head and neck mobility is a sign and symptom of a musculoskeletal condition called torticollis. That is something you do want to bring up to a healthcare provider as well as look into physical therapy for. And that is kind of pretty much explained. If there's anything that could be a sign and symptom of torticollis, know that that is very clearly laid out in the book. So you don't have to guess what would be a sign of torticollis. It's all right there. So you can be as educated as possible on that situation. The next thing you want to look at is neck strength, because you do, when you roll from your back to your belly, you basically go from your back to your side. And then once you're on your side, you actually have to tilt your head up towards your top ear to fully rotate and get back onto your belly. So if you don't have the neck strength to tilt your head and your upper trunk against gravity, see if I can find a picture of that because I know it is in here. So that is that kind of that picture showing that the baby is tilting their head towards their top ear. And then you also tilt that top half of your trunk so that you can make space for that bottom arm to not get stuck. So if you don't have that neck strength, or it's weaker on one side, then that could be a contributing factor to why a baby is struggling with rolling back to belly. Okay, what else could cause difficulty rolling back to belly? Are we able to get both of our arms diagonally across our chest to one side? So oftentimes babies need the ability to cross the midline. So if you think of a line going from the top of your head through your nose, through your chin, straight down through your belly button, through between your legs, that is considered midline. It's basically if you drew a line straight down between your body, you have a right half and a left half. If you need to cross midline, that is basically bringing one limb or one part of your body across this imaginary line. And that requires both halves of your brain to work together, because when I'm using my left hand, I'm using the right half of my brain. When I'm using my right hand, I'm using the left half of my brain. If I use my left hand to cross into the right side of my body, now both halves of my brain have to work together, because my left hand, controlled by the right side of my brain, is now in my right side territory that's controlled by the left hand side of my brain. Those pathways cross through the corpus callosum, which is basically just like a checkpoint where a bunch of neurons go through and they communicate. And that helps with daily activities and also pre-academic skills like reading and writing. Because again, if you're reading a book, you go from the left side, at least in America, you go from the left side of the page and your eyeballs cross to the right side of the page. So your eyeballs have to go like this. And then once you're done at the edge of the page, your eyeballs have to jump back. And so both eyeballs are crossing midline. And other activities like writing, you start on the left side of the page if you're right-handed, and you have to cross midline. So some kiddos you'll see laying down, see if I can move this, laying down with their head down here and the page over here. Well, I never have to cross midline if I'm writing like that. So kiddos who have struggles with crossing midline, that may come up in pre-academic skills, which is why rolling is one of the most important milestones. If we master rolling, so many things down chain are so much easier. So for parents, I really, really feel like tummy time, sideline play, back play, rolling, if we could focus, then I know that's the time when you guys are most sleep deprived, but we can really focus on mastering those skills at that space, then going forward, everything is so much easier. Okay, so the next one is, can babies hit objects above their head? So when they're laying on their back and they're under like a play gym where toys are dangling from the ceiling, are they able to bring their arms up and bat those toys? If they're laying on their side, are they able to bring this top arm above their head, above the level of their shoulder, and hit at toys? That shows us that, hey, the baby has the inert ability and the inert strength to fight gravity. While if my arm's up, gravity is constantly pushing everything to the ground. So my arm's up. Can I hold it there move within this higher range. Now, if I have a lot of tightness down in this part or in the front of my chest or in the front of my neck, bringing my arm above my head is going to be more difficult because I have to fight the resistance of the muscle tightness. So I'm not able to activate my shoulder and my arm muscles to their full range. So if a baby is only kind of batting toys with one hand, or maybe they're not going above the level of their shoulder, they're only staying right at the level of their shoulder, those could be indicators of tightness in this region. And if we have muscle tightness in the shoulder, we're not going to be able to bring both arms to the side because, again, that requires length and that requires my arm to go above the height of the shoulder. All right, what else we got here? See, again, this is the reason why I wrote this book, because there's so many different components to rolling back to belly. And oftentimes parents aren't given the opportunity to know all of these little markers to look for to try and troubleshoot, hey, if my baby's not reaching to the side, does that just mean I could introduce a proactive play position to help teach them this little mini movement? And then they'll be able to have that skill set. And the next thing we know, okay, now they have all of the pieces they need in order to be able to do this by themselves. Hey, we just solved a problem. Did that need in-person pediatric physical therapy? Maybe. And also maybe not. So there is a space where strategic play and exercises can really solve these problems. And then there's also totally valid times and places where pediatric physical therapy can really make the experience easier for everyone involved and also get faster results. So it's really up to parents, and then also the time frame in which babies are at. If it's after 6 months, pediatric physical therapy is the gold standard. And you can use this book then in conjunction with PT with the approval of your PT for extra exercises that you can do on your own. If it's before 6 months, then you can feel free to just work on proactive play exercises to help your baby master this milestone. All right, the other thing that we really want to look at, and the rest of these are really about kind of core strength, because that is one of the biggest struggles for babies when they're rolling back to belly. So for context, when you're rolling belly to back, oftentimes babies are highly, highly motivated to get out of tummy time because it's a really hard position for them to hold. It's like, running a 10K when you not gotten off the couch. It's just so difficult. It takes so much energy for them to fight gravity, because gravity is, again, trying to push their head to the ground. They're trying to fight all of that. And they're also little newborn babies, and they just haven't had the experience to build up that muscle strength quite yet. So they're highly motivated to get out of tummy time. So oftentimes belly to back rolling happens first because that motivation level is really high. Back to belly motivation can oftentimes be lower because laying on your back is easier than completing the roll. So if you have a baby that struggles with core strength or struggles with mobility, or has difficulty coordinating those motions all together, then laying on their back, they're going to be happy as a clam. They're going to be so chill there, not have not really maybe show any interest in rolling. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not actually interested in rolling. It just means that they have some gaps in their skill level that makes rolling so much harder than just laying on their back. So we want to make sure we meet them where their tolerance level is and build those gaps up so they become smaller, so that rolling becomes easier for the baby, because babies are made to move. They want to roll. They want to explore their environments. They want to get objects that look interesting to them, put them in their mouths probably. But if their skill level has gaps in it, then going from laying on their back to anything else is going to feel almost impossible for them. So the biggest things we want to make sure, can a baby grab their feet? If you prop their bum up, are they able to hold that position without kicking out of it? Because if a baby's constantly kicking out of their back being rounded, then they may have some mobility restrictions in their pelvis. Are babies able to hold their head in a tucked position, either when you are holding kind of their finger and pulling them into sit or supporting them behind the shoulders? I personally almost never test the pull to sit because babies need to be able to actually activate the pulling. What you don't want is babies to be have their arms straight and you're pulling them up. That can put a lot of stress on the shoulder girdle. So what I like to do, and it's in the book, let's go to the core strengthening section, is make sure that babies can do supported pull to sit 10 times in a row. And so you can see this picture where my hands are in an open shape and they're right behind the baby's shoulder. So you start from the ground and then you kind of bring them up. So let's see, let's go from the beginning. Okay. So your hands are in an open standpoint. You bring them behind the shoulders and then you bring the baby up nice and slowly. That is the key here. We want to go from their back into sitting super slow, because going super slow is going to make them have to hold that position for longer. It's going to make them strengthen their muscles more. And then we're going to go similarly, I don't even know, from sitting back to lying down. Now, this is a position where sometimes babies can just like give up and let their head go back. So you want to really make sure that your fingertips can support the head if the head goes back. So you want to be right at kind of the base of the skull there and go nice and slow. Now, in the book, there's also a modified version. You guys kind of saw that with that boppy. And so what the boppy does is it lifts the shoulders higher than the hips, so it makes it a little bit easier. Gravity is the meanest kind of in that first 25% range. So the first 25 degrees, gravity is like a fire hose to the face for babies. It's just super hard. It's super mean. And so if you add a boppy to fill that space in, then you can train this range until the baby is strong enough to go all the way from the floor all the way up. So in the checklist, it's, can a baby do a, can a baby, let's try that again. Can a baby do 10 pull to sits with the support behind the shoulders in a row while keeping their chin tucked? So you don't want to see what we would call a head leg where the chin is up and the head is back. That means they're not using these muscles on the front of their neck. So you want those muscles to be engaged. So you kind of get like that double chin look with the baby. And you can kind of help them by putting something in their mouth, maybe trying to kind of engage them here to start it. And then hopefully they're able to maintain that the whole time. If not, you might just be doing this little motion where the baby's only coming off the ground or coming off the boppy, 10 degrees, and you're just training that range. The most important thing is the chin tuck. And then adding, you might be able to do one or two, and then the baby gets fussy and tired. So then you just add one more the next time, and you just go incrementally more until you're able to do 10. But if you notice that you try the pull to sit and your baby's not having 10, give them a couple of days, because if you haven't done that exercise with a baby before, it might be new. They might be like, what is this? No, thank you very much. Pass. So you want to give them a couple of opportunities to be able to show really what their strength is. But we really, in order to go from our back to our side to our belly, we really want to be able to fully engage that core, because if you think of it here, you have to literally lift this pelvis as gravity's trying to push it back down, lift this pelvis over to the side, and then you have to tilt it all the way over. And so you need some rotation components. That's in the mobility section of the book. You need some of these other things, but the main ones specifically are that core strength for sure, bringing 2 arms across the body. So watch my shoulders as I do that though. Oh, hey, there's something over to the right. My shoulders are now pointed to the right, but the rest of my body is pointing forward. So that is, again, is right upper trunk rotation. So your baby needs to be able to have the mobility available, not only to hold their arms up against gravity while gravity is trying to push it down, but reach across the midline, which again requires that coordination, but also the ability to rotate their trunk. So sometimes you also see babies that struggle with back to belly having difficulty with that rotation component. And so if you do notice that, that's kind of the last one on the checklist is, can they rotate their upper half of their body equally in both directions? If that is a struggle, then you're going to want to come into the mobility section. And you're going to want to make sure you go through that just to either learn how to do it. You're like, I don't know what upper trunk rotation is. You're like, okay, I'm going to go to page 204, look at upper trunk rotation and sitting screen. Okay, this tells me exactly how to do this. All right, if the baby can hold their head up against gravity and supported sitting, maybe they're like 5-ish months, so they got good head control. I'm going to stick them between my legs, keep their pelvis steady, and I'm going to just go for as much as the baby allows me to. I'm not going to push past it. And I'm just going to see basically as like pulling the slack of like a garden hose, right? If you kind of pull it until it stops, you're not going to necessarily like yank on it, right? Especially with a baby. No, thank you. We are just going to kind of gently go until it stops. And then you're like, okay, this is as far as you can go. This is your available range in this direction. Does it feel the same side to side? Maybe you do it a couple times to try and kind of figure that out. And then you kind of go through and there's, different exercises that you can do to kind of improve this, different hold positions you can do. So there's just a lot of different strategies that you can use with this book to help a baby go from their back to their belly, if that is something that they are struggling with. We got a couple of people live. So if you have any questions on babies rolling back to belly, shoot those in the chat. And while I give you guys a couple of seconds to do that and type that out, if you have any questions, I am going to check Facebook because I added that and check the, see if we have any questions on. Okay, so we are good there. Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to check the community section, community tab, make sure we didn't have any questions dropped. Okay, so it looks like we are good there. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. Just to reiterate, the book is available via the link in the description and then also in the pinned comment. So this again is just my brain in paper. It's literally everything I know about rolling and tummy time. Sorry, that took me a hot minute to pull all together. Okay, I don't see any comments, so I'm going to end this. If you do end up having a question later on, feel free to come back to this video and drop the comments in the, drop the question in the comments. All right, guys, have a great one. Thanks for joining me.